Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and this is Fourths Part 2. I didn't know I was going to do a Part 2, but here we are. So in Part 1, we looked at fourths, voicing simple triads in a traditional Christmas song in more or less an orchestral setting. And today, we'll take a look at fourths in a kind of a conventional jazz, hip-hop, lo-fi chord progression. Let's take a look. Let's just run this. That's 2, 5, 1 in the key of C. A 6 chord to turn around. Also a 2 chord, but over the F, 5, and then a deceptive cadence to the 6. Now, I use a tritone substitution here, D flat, 7. We'll talk about it at the end of the session. And then turn it around. This is A7 instead of A minor 7. And then the same release with an altered chord using stacks of fourths again. And then the whole thing happens again. Well, there's a good amount to unpack here, and let's try to take it one step at a time. Be gentle. So probably the most common jazz and sort of soulified hip-hop chord progression that we have to work with is the basically functional harmony progression 2, 5, 1. 2 is generally a minor 7 chord. 5 is generally a dominant chord. 1, a major chord, a major 6, major 9, major 7. All these chords are 7th chords or more extended. And I've used a simple expression of the roots at the bottom, but take a look at what's going on here on the D minor 7 chord. That's A, D, G. I guess you could call that D minor 11. There's no third. There's no 7th, but we still buy it. And here's my G7 chord. Very clearly, there's the 7th, there's the 3rd. This is not a perfect fourth. It's a tritone. Tritones give us that bite, and we resolve to, I guess we would have to call it a C6 chord. There's the 3rd, there's the 6th, there's the 9th. Well, it's a nice turnaround chord, the 6th chord here. 6 goes to 2. As you know, it's 5 steps above the 2 chord, and so the whole thing cycles around beautifully. Well, we use the same right hand voicings here, but when the roots change, it gives it a slightly different color. The parallelisms are beautiful in this context. And it happens again. And instead of going to a 1 chord, I go to a minor 6, an 11 chord in this case. That in itself is a fun, easy way to express what is a very common chord progression without using very cliched thirds-based voicings. The stack of fourths bakes in extensions, and the parallelisms validate the motion. If we had a melody over this, it would be super, also great way to accompany a soloist, guitar, sax, even a singer. Well, let's go on. Now, pretty much the same idea is next, but we need to talk a little bit about this. So the 2 chord D minor 7 here is exactly what happened first, but the 5 chord, and that's what's highlighted right here, is something called a tritone substitution. And let's talk quickly about why it works. These 2 notes, F and B, are the 7th and 3rd of G7. I'll just record this really quickly so we can visualize it. As it happens, G7 and D flat 7 both have B and F, B and F built in, and they are in fact the tritone that gives the dominant chord its energy. In the case of the G7 chord, B is the third, but in the case of the D7 chord, you can see it, there it is right there, it's the seventh. Well, the roles reverse. The F is the third. Over here, the F is the seventh. Well, it's kind of an interesting effect, and I guess we'll just say it out loud. Also, G and D flat, they're a tritone apart. There's a kind of a symmetry to it, which is worth thinking about, but don't think too hard, because if I think about this too hard, it blows my mind. Well, let's get back to where we were. So here we are halfway through our chord progression, and I've replaced the G7 chord with D flat 7. It's a great way to express the chord in a way that's crunchier. Listen to the bass sound as we go in. Here we go. Crunchier, it's nice. And our one chord, well, I liked that sound so much that the next thing I wanted to do was take the sixth chord and make it, instead of A minor 7, I wanted to make it a dominant sound. So C sharp to give me a third. Kind of crunchy there, right? I love it. And what this voicing does is give us a seventh, and there's a C sharp and an F sharp. Well, that's a typical dominant voicing. You see the tritone right here. I let it resolve to the same ending chord. There's our D minor 7 over F. And then this G7, I took B and F, and then the B flat is just a fourth over the F. And in a way, we could say that I borrowed the right-hand stack of fourths from D flat 7. So the second half of this set of voicings, is a little more aggressive, has a little more edge. Let's listen to them again. The first one feels smooth to me. Very standard. I just use white keys, C major scale. Here I couldn't. A little more bite. A little more bite. A few more blues tones. It's got a little more just juice to it. Well, you can imagine how this could be useful in almost any style that's more contemporary, great for accompanying soloists. Almost any chord progression that you find and like can be spiced up, made to sound jazzy or even more contemporary, just by changing the stack of thirds that you ordinarily might use for the chord to a stack of fourths. I hope this was useful. Like and subscribe, you know the drill. I'm very curious to know what you're working on right now, and I'll see you next time.